Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for this What If Wednesday. Joining me as always, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, although it's 39th based on your newest Twitter parody. 39th ranked Philly beat reporter. But the actual Charlie O'Connor, #1 Philadelphia hockey beat reporter. Man, today's What If Wednesday. What if we get to What If Wednesday?
What if we get to What If Wednesday?
We were just saying right before we went live. I know it feels like the Flyers did nothing because the roster is exactly the same, except Matvei Michkov is here. And, like, we can talk about how big a deal, like, obviously it's a huge deal. But maybe since we saw it coming and then it happened, it was like, all right, well, yeah, I knew that was happening. But we didn't, like, 6 months ago.
Right.
For a team that you can make the argument they did nothing, they've been doing shit all summer. Like, we've done so little of the offseason bullshit that I had planned to get us through this time that, I have stuff saved. I'm like, oh, maybe we get to this summer 2025. Like, maybe we get to save some stuff. It is very funny to me how active, even though they've, quote unquote, done nothing, how big a part of the offseason the Flyers have been. Like, they've been relevant all summer.
There were about 2 weeks where there was nothing. From maybe the very, very tail end of July through the middle of August. And other than that, it's been constant stuff. There's always been stuff. And this is, again, I do think this is intentional. Now, some of it, of course, is not. I'm sure they did not intentionally want Alexei Kolosov to, have second thoughts about coming back over from North America. But I do think part of it is the Keith Jones, Dan Hilferty run Flyers organization wants to be relevant again. And they want people to be talking about them. So I think part of it is strategized, that they wanted it to get out in the lead up to the draft, that they were really, really trying to move up. Now, do I think that they were actually really, really trying to move up? Yeah, I do. I think they were trying. But I also think it's just a difference from, say, like the Hextall era, where Ron Hextall wanted to move in stealth fashion. He would have, we joked about this yesterday, but he was very much the kind of person who his dream would be playing in an arena with no fans and no cameras and no nothing. And then he just tells the media what he did after he did it. And that's it. That's how it goes. He didn't want any spotlight on him or his players or anyone whatsoever. He just wanted to be able to do his job in peace. This organization, no, they want the spotlight on them at all times. So they do want to create the perception that they are constantly, if not doing things, at least constantly in the news. Yeah. And I do think this summer, while they didn't make the big trade, they didn't make the big signing, they did find ways to constantly be in the news. And this week was just an explosion of reasons to be in the news.
And that news carries on. Obviously, we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the Ryan Johansen. He was put on unconditional waivers, so they could terminate his contract. He officially cleared waivers today, so they can terminate his contract. We are going to very much get into that. But first, one of those things you don't want to see in the news. I just want to send a little love to Travis Konechny and family. There's a report around 11:30 last night of a fire at his New Jersey house. Luckily, neither he nor his family were home. Looks like they're up in Calgary or something. But that still fucking sucks, man. So I hope everything turns out all right for them. Just wanted to put that out there. Most people have seen it by now, but many probably haven't. Shout out to the Konechnys. Now, Ryan Johansen.
Hey,
you wrote, I told you, I got here today, my normal time. I usually get here around 11, maybe 5 of 11. Sit down, do my research, get everything prepared for the show. It's like, all right, I got plenty of time to do this. I open up your article, and you can get access to the article by becoming a diehard.
Sure can.
I open up your little primer here on the Ryan Johansen situation, and it's by little, gigantic. It was all done for me. So I basically just looked at Twitter for 2 hours after I copy and pasted the parts I wanted. So if you want the full story here, Charlie has 10 burning questions and answers about the Johansen situation available on allphly.com right now. But I want to get into the bits I find interesting and see how long we talk about this, because I love this dumb CBA shit. I find it so interesting how it plays out, the settlement, how the NHL does things. It's like, these are the rules. Yeah, until something else happens and we figure it out. The first bit of news after yesterday's conversation, we have the whole Flyers are waiving Johansen for, what is it? A breach of his contract, material breach, and they're gonna waive him. He's gonna be terminated tomorrow. Shortly after yesterday's show, a little before 4:00, we get the response from Kevin Overhardt's agency,
Kurt
Overhardt. Why do I keep wanting to say Kevin? Is that like a actor or something? I feel like I've done this like 3 times already. Anyway,
you'll get the hang of it. I feel like Kurt Overhardt is going to be
his name.
He's going to be discussed quite a lot over the next few weeks and months. So I think you'll eventually get the hang of it.
Kurt, and I have it right in front of me, and it's on here too. His agency, KO Sports, that represents Ryan Johansen, Cutter Gauthier, Joel Farabee, a whole bunch of people, like half the league. they have a bunch of, but they basically put out Ryan Johansen has a severe hockey injury that requires extensive surgery, which has been scheduled. Since being traded to the Philadelphia Flyers, Ryan has worked in good faith with the club, its medical staff, and authorized third-party physicians. The Flyers' attempt to terminate Ryan's contract is disappointing. We have been in contact with the NHLPA and will defend Ryan and protect his rights.
And then the NHLPA, according to Elliot Friedman, basically released a statement as well. I'm not quite sure where because they didn't put it on their Twitter account, but it essentially was just that we are concerned with this and we are aware of it. So they are clearly looking into the possibility of filing a grievance. The way this works, like Kurt Overhardt can be angry. He's obviously, Ryan Johansen's agent. He's involved, but he does not file the grievance. If there is a grievance filed, it is filed by the NHLPA on behalf of the player. This is the union fighting for their player. And any battle, it's not between the Flyers and Johansen. It's between the NHL and the NHLPA. Yeah. Any further battle. That's how this works. Obviously, the Flyers will be involved. The Flyers will be presenting their evidence to the NHL, and the NHL will be advocating on behalf of the Flyers. And then Kurt Overhardt and Ryan Johansen will be presenting their evidence to the NHLPA, who then will be doing it on behalf of them. But if this goes further, whether in grievance territory or settlement territory, this will be a battle between the NHLPA and the NHL. And that's important to remember.
It is. Yeah, definitely. And we have some parts of the CBA I want to get into in just a little bit that maybe help explain what's actually going on. But the first thing I pulled from your article, because I feel like we may have discussed this at the time, like in March when it would all happen, but I don't, maybe we glossed over it in our convo yesterday, or I misspoke. I don't really remember what was said, but you put in your article, according to both the Athletics' Kevin Kurz and Philly Hockey Now's John Bailey, the Flyers medical staff did eventually evaluate Johansen's injury in person, and it was reported that they did, in fact, find like he has an injury. This isn't, hey, I don't want to play for the Phantoms, my hip hurts. Like, he's not making it up. There is some sort of issue going on here, which leads me to, like, the Flyers, I feel like, are in a precarious situation here.
In what way?
Like, their doctors found an injury. He's getting the injury taken care of. Like, I don't really see a ton here on the Flyers case unless there's one of these other issues. Like, I believe maybe they told him don't get the surgery, or when to get the surgery might be a bigger issue. But it sounds like this is more about last season, because he's not in breach of his contract this year until he doesn't show up to camp.
It's true.
Like, so this is about last year.
Elliot Friedman made it clear that this was in reference to him not playing after the trade. Now, obviously, he cannot not. You can't argue he hasn't played this upcoming season because this upcoming season hasn't started yet. So obviously that would mean a reference to last season. Now, given Kurt Overhardt's agency statement, it's clear that this has something to do with the injury. The one thing I will not correct you, but I will note is that I say in the article that according to both the Athletics' Kevin Kurz and Philly Hockey Now's John Bailey, the Flyers medical staff did eventually evaluate Johansen's injury in person. I do not know what their evaluation was. And that is an important tidbit to know. It is possible that the Flyers' evaluation differs from Ryan Johansen's doctor's evaluation or a third party's doctor's evaluation. We just don't know the details of that. And that is something that as of now has not yet been reported. So we do not know if maybe part of this is there is a disagreement, a disagreement between the Flyers medical staff and Johansen's medical staff. It might not be. Maybe all sides agree that there's an injury. Maybe the disagreement is on the severity of the injury. Maybe the Johansen doctors believe that this is something that is debilitating and he can't play through. And the Flyers doctors are like, yeah, there's an injury here, but like, come on, you could definitely play through this if you wanted to.
And that's always like, I always put everything in wrestling terms, but like any story about like an injured wrestler, they go see a regular, physician, and it's like, yeah, you're never going to wrestle again. It's like, well, yeah, because it's real fucking bad for you. Like, of course, you think that, but you're not like the doctor of an elite athlete familiar with what these injuries actually do to these people. And like, yeah, man, you're fine. Get out there, And that's very much the difference here. And this is where I first, like, maybe this is where the Flyers are coming from, because I remember from the Jack Eichel Buffalo situation, Jack Eichel wanted the disc replacement surgery, and Buffalo was like, no, this has never been done to an NHL player before. Like, we have no idea what that's going to do to you. And it is in the CBA. One negotiated term in the NHL CBA states that when a disagreement occurs between the player and the team doctors have the final say in the treatment plan for the player. So that, I think, speaks to what you're saying. Like, yeah, we looked at you. We don't think you need surgery. We don't think you need it now. So you're definitely not coming to camp now if you get it. Like, if Overhardt is saying, well, yeah, he has a severe injury and we have a surgery scheduled, like, well, what if the Flyers said, no, don't do that?
Yeah.
That is technically in violation of like the CBA.
Especially if the Flyers are contending, which I don't know this for sure. But my guess is that the Flyers are ultimately contending, which I think is part of the reason why I believe the NHL is on board with this. Because somebody asked in our comment section, does this mean the Flyers consulted with the NHL prior to making the move? The Flyers would not have been allowed to place him on unconditional waivers if the NHL did not know what they were going to do and say, yes, we are on board. We will support you if you try to do a material breach contract termination. So that's something I did clarify yesterday. This isn't the Flyers going off on their own here. They wouldn't have done this if they didn't know the NHL was going to have their backs. The NHL is going to have their backs if and when the Flyers do execute this termination. So there's that. But where was I before I did that little detour?
I was talking about the like maybe a disagreement between the doctors, and that would lead to maybe the material breach. But like, this is such a complicated issue. There's so many points.
It's a complicated issue because we don't have all the details.
Yeah, we don't have.
That's really what it comes down to. What we know is that there is a dispute about the injury. And I think the Flyers' view, this is what I was trying to get at before I made the detour. The Flyers' view is that, look, there's an injury here. We've looked at you. We're not saying you are 100%. But the preponderance of evidence implies that you are doing this because you don't want to go down to the minors. And also, you didn't want to be bought out. That, like, if we strip away all the bells and whistles and the surgery and the injury and all the lawyer talk and whatever your agent's saying, at its core, you are doing this because we wanted to send you down to the minors. You don't have a no movement clause that prevents us from being able to do that. And you blew an injury out of proportion to prevent us from doing something that the CBA allows us to do, which is to send someone down to the minors after they clear waivers and also buy someone out in the buyout window that is prescribed in the CBA. I really believe that is the core of this, and that is what is driving this.
That absolutely, like, we don't know the details of like why exactly the timeline, but yeah, I do think those are the driving forces between like, yeah, this is why we're doing this, because we had this plan when we acquired you. Like, this was not a big Ryan Johansen, the minute he was acquired, because we were doing the show live from the trade deadline show, and it was like, oh, that's kind of odd. I mean, they don't have any centers. We'll see. Oh, he does have that history with Torts, and right away it was like, yeah, he ain't playing here. That's not going to be happening.
I remember he was
put on waivers immediately.
I was literally walking onto a plane to Florida when the news broke. And I was walking down the aisle and I was texting and DMing sources to try to get information. And I got the information that Johansen was in the deal. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, yeah, I mean, he's not that good now, but they don't really have centers, so maybe. And then immediately I get from, I think it was Friedman who tweeted like, yeah, he's on waivers. And I was like, oh, okay. Guess he's not part of the plan at all. And then later in the next couple of days, I learned that the Flyers' viewpoint was, we don't want this guy in our room. We think he will be toxic to the culture we are trying to build. And you have to look at this too, I guess, from Johansen's perspective. If that's what you're hearing, it doesn't give you a lot of reason to cut the Flyers a break. You know what I mean? Like, he might like, oh, you think I'm an asshole? I'll show you how much of an asshole I am. I'll say I'm injured, so I can't be demoted. Take that, assholes.
Also, that makes it very clear because they were like, yeah, man, fine, stay home. You know, they didn't care about last season. It was like, yeah, all right, yeah, whatever.
They would have liked the minimal cap relief because maybe it would have saved them a little bit of money on a bonus overage, but it wasn't devastating.
But it very much speaks to their intention the entire time was to buy him out.
Yes.
Because while, all right, yeah, for a couple of weeks we send him to the minors, how much damage could he possibly do to the room? If he's that toxic that you can't have him with grown men in the NHL, and there are some young players, sure. A bunch of kids in the AHL, you want him with them?
It's a fair point.
For a year?
It's a fair point.
Like, no, they always were going to buy him out.
Yeah.
That was absolutely the plan, and he wants his money.
Yeah.
You can't have both. We can buy out and you can get some of it, or hey, you report to the minors, you're going to get all of it.
You will get all of it. Yeah.
He's not more because there's no escrow down there. But he wants all of his money and he wants to play in the NHL, and that simply wasn't going to happen here.
Yeah.
Sorry, man, you don't have a no move clause, but this is his only course of action now.
And I think the reason why, if I had to guess, the reason why the Flyers got the NHL on board to approve this move, which is a drastic move. Like, this doesn't happen often. It's a drastic move, and it's very much going to piss off the NHLPA. But the reason why they were able to get the NHL on board with this is because what Johansen is essentially doing is violating the spirit of the CBA. Like, teams are allowed to do this. They are allowed to send guys down to the minors if they clear waivers. They are allowed to buy guys out. And now, you can buy a guy out if he has a no movement clause, but you can't send a guy down to the minors if he doesn't have a no movement clause. Johansen doesn't have a no movement clause. So by the CBA, the Flyers would be allowed to do what they do. Now, yes, in the CBA, it also says that if you're hurt, you can't do either of those things. That is in the CBA. However, the reality of the NHL is that every single player is hurt. Every single player, in theory, pretty much, could probably find something wrong with them when a team tries to demote them. If a guy has a big contract, if a team tries to demote a guy down to the minors, every single player could probably get some doctor to say, yeah, his ankle's busted, he can't play. And I don't think the NHL wants to set the precedent that every time a player is asked to do something they don't want to do, they can just find a doctor to say he's hurt, you can't do it. I think my guess is that they want to make it clear that no, if you're healthy enough to play in the NHL, you can't then cry injury if you were going to be sent down to the AHL.
It's like, especially a player, like we said yesterday, 905 regular season games, like close to another 70 playoff games. Yeah, motherfucker ain't 100%. No one is. That would be impossible.
Especially when you're in your 30s.
Yeah, like he's 31, 32. Like, that would be legitimately impossible for him to be like, oh, yeah, I feel great. I wake up every morning feeling spry. Like, that's not happening. So, yeah, he can absolutely find these doctors, but I do think that's part of the reason. Because when I remember with the Jack Eichel situation, it's like, really? The team gets final say on, like, whether or not, like, what surgery you get? That seems insane. And I think this is why.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, this situation, because, like, yeah, man, like, you have no cartilage in your knee or whatever. Like, no one has any, you know? All of it is an issue for some player. And you have to, the league looks at it like, we need a doctor, team doctors who are familiar with exactly what goes into playing in the NHL and can comparatively go, yeah, man, like, your hip does hurt because you get thrown into the boards 6 times a night for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Like, of course your hip hurts. The boards are hard.
And the timing of it, of course, plays into the point that the Flyers are making, which is if Ryan Johansen's goal here was to fulfill the terms of his contract, if he was actually making a good faith effort to fulfill the terms of his contract and play hockey, it would not be the middle of August after, it being 4 months after the season ended. It would not be the middle of August and he's still yet to have the surgery. He would have had the surgery in April because the goal would have been, I want to have a surgery so I can play next year. No, he still hasn't had the surgery, which is an admission that Overhardt makes in his statement that the surgery is scheduled, which implies that he has not yet had it.
Well, he's got to come back from his honeymoon first. You need your hips on a honeymoon.
Come on, priorities.
Yeah,
but seriously, if he's not having the surgery until September, the circumstantial evidence implies that he scheduled the surgery so that he will be incapable of playing for the Flyers, at least to start the year, and likely throughout most of the year, if not the whole year.
I do have to get to these reads, but I just have one more. I think something in the Flyers' favor could also just be look at our history of cap management. We have dudes sit out, go on LTI. We have no problem doing this. We let dudes do this all the time. You are trying to take advantage of a situation.
Let me put it this way. I think unless the Flyers, and it's very possible they do, unless the Flyers have some sort of, specific doctor dispute or a claim that Johansen is faking it or that his doctor is lying or that the Flyers doctors totally disagree, and that's possible. He might. If they don't have that, I really do think a lot of their case, and I don't even think it's a bad case, is going to be essentially come on.
You just played 63 games.
Come on. This is just common sense that 2 days before the trade you were healthy, then we tell you you're going to the minors and suddenly you're not healthy. And also, you scheduled your surgery for 2 weeks before camp rather than 4 months before camp. It's common sense that you're trying to avoid going down to the minors. Everyone sees what you're doing here, bro.
And I will say, if I was 31, 32 years old and knew that I was getting sent to the minors, there's a 0% chance I'm doing a Tortorella camp.
Very fair.
None.
Very fair.
None. Why would I? Oh, yeah, I got a chance of making the team. He already hates me from our previous time together. I'm not. They told me they don't want me in the room. I ain't going. It makes sense. I would do the same thing. But that's why this is probably going to come down to the most likely outcome, which we'll get to in a minute. But first, I got to tell you, man, yesterday was a prime example of why you gotta visit your local Rite Aid and sign up for those Rite Aid rewards emails, man, because fall allergies are here. They can start as early as August. Well, guess what? It's August 21st, and allergies, that wind yesterday, man, I'm back in the burbs in Jersey, and Garden State certainly kind of kicking my ass and my wife's ass. It sucks, honestly. Fall allergies are terrible. I've had them my whole life. There's all sorts of culprits, from ragweed and mold to plants, sagebrush, tumbleweed, pigweed, dust mites, pet dander. There's all sorts of causes of fall allergies. But whatever your allergies and symptoms are, there's a lot of things you can do maybe to alleviate them a little bit. And it starts by visiting your local Rite Aid and signing up for Rite Aid rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards so you can receive pollen alerts for your area. You can maybe go pick up a dehumidifier at your local Rite Aid. Dust mites and mold thrive in humid environments, and a dehumidifier helps take the moisture out of the air so that these allergens can't grow. You got to shower frequently, get all the pollen and everything off of you. And honestly, just shower frequently, man. Come on. Check the pollen counts. Keep your windows closed and use an air conditioner. And wear a protective mask when gardening. You want to get your yard all cleaned up for fall. take care of yourself. Put on the gloves, put on the mask. It'll just cut down on the allergens. But if that's not enough, these simple, okay, those things are preventative. Maybe check out the over-the-counter options at Rite Aid. Like try a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages. When symptoms are flaring and pollen counts are high, maybe check out antihistamines. And 1 to 2 weeks before pollen allergies are expected, maybe check out nasal corticosteroids, all available over the counter at your local Rite Aid. And if you still have questions, you're still not getting enough relief, ask a Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication like a decongestant might be necessary. And you can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season. Again, I've had fall allergies my whole life. It's always fun in school. Like, oh, yeah, my nose is bleeding. Great. My teachers all think I'm on drugs. It's like, yeah, but not these ones. But anyway, check out Rite Aid. Maybe you won't have to deal with the same problems I did when I was, going through those problems. And speaking of, you're outside, you're doing some work. Maybe you want to visit your local Ace Hardware, because Ace Hardware and Ace Hardware Home Services, man, we know they're the helpful hardware folks. But now they're not just that. They have home services available to help you with all of your home projects. Maybe you got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services. We're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. If you have an air conditioning issue, they got a person for that. Hey, man, you need to alleviate those allergies by running the air. Now you need your air working. Maybe you have a faucet you said you'd fix last fall. We all have those home projects. It's like, yeah, I'll get to that at some point. You know the easiest way to take care of it? It's call Ace Hardware Home Services, because they have everything from plumbing to heating and cooling, and they've got the trusted pros to keep your house humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, we're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. All right, Charlie. So the Johansen camp, they're making the 3 contentions here that you laid out in your article. He's got a legitimate injury, and it's severe enough to need surgery.
Right.
He has surgery scheduled. It's not like people love getting surgery. Yeah, he's gonna get
you wouldn't
this sucks.
You wouldn't get surgery
out of spite.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe you would, but you'd have to be kind of psychotic.
Yeah, like if you're willing to take those steps, honestly, all right,
sure, take the $8 million bucks.
Maybe we're gonna give you're gonna get some of your money. And he's not avoiding the outside medical exams and evaluations. He did report at one point and get examined by Philadelphia. I wasn't sure if it was the Phantoms or Flyer, but he got examined by someone in the organization.
He did go to Voorhees.
Yeah, okay.
I think so.
So it wasn't Voorhees,
yes.
Possibly. And he's contacted third-party doctor. Like, he's been evaluated, all this stuff. Both sides have a case. You laid it. Like, the Flyers, it's a lot of circumstantial, but it's like, fucking use your brain.
Exactly.
Like, this is what's happening. Maybe he's hurt. But if he had any intention of fulfilling his contract, he would have got that. He would have got that surgery 4 or 5 months ago.
Yep.
Like when we told him, fine, don't come.
Yeah. And if the injury was that serious, he wouldn't have played 2 days before the trade.
He wouldn't have played
and skated in morning skate for the Avalanche the day of the trade.
63 games, including half of which like at a higher altitude where you're just more likely to get hurt.
That's a fair point.
Like, all that stuff. So the most likely outcome here, as we talked about earlier, and I do want to maybe go down the rabbit hole of the Mike Richards settlement and everything, because that's just crazy to me. The NHL likes to resolve these things as simply as possible.
Yes.
There's going to be some sort of settlement that the Flyers get under the cap and Johansen is not left with nothing. He's going to get some of his money. The Flyers aren't going to have to pay out all $4 million. Nashville's not going to have to pay out all $4 million that they owe. There's going to be some sort of settlement here where all sides are like, yeah, all right. Like, that's the most likely outcome?
I would say that is definitely the most likely. It's not the only possible outcome. So the way this is going to play out is, assuming, because Elliot Friedman tweeted today that Johansen cleared waivers. He can now be bought out. I guess the Flyers have not officially announced that they have not bought him out. They have terminated.
Yeah.
I guess the Flyers have not yet officially announced that they've terminated the deal. I don't know why they go through this if they're not going to. So assume he's going to be terminated. The contract is going to be terminated.
They put out a press release yesterday and they're like, we changed our
mind. Yeah, 24 hours later, changed our minds. So assuming that the Flyers do indeed terminate his deal today, the NHLPA on behalf of Johansen would have 60 days to file a grievance. Then after that grievance, eventually it would go to an arbitrator. However, in the other similar circumstances where players had his contract terminated, I'm thinking of 3 in particular. I'm thinking of the most recent one where Corey Perry was involved in that very sketchy, never really learned exactly what happened, but something off the ice where he did something wrong and they terminated his deal. There was that one that happened last winter. There was the Mike Richards one that happened in 2015. Where he was arrested at the border and he got his contract terminated. And then there was the Evander Kane one in 2021 where he breached COVID protocols in the AHL and they terminated his deal for that. In all 3 of those instances, it did not actually get to the arbitrator. The NHL and the NHLPA agreed to a settlement. Actually, in the Perry's case, there wasn't even a grievance. They agreed to a settlement without a grievance.
Yeah, they never filed.
They never actually filed a grievance. They threatened to, and they never actually did.
Everyone kept expecting there to be a grievance filed, and then eventually it was just like, yeah, this is over.
Yeah,
because that was like an undisclosed settlement, right?
We figured out. Yeah, it was undisclosed. But in all 3 cases, there was a settlement that was reached. Now, is it possible that there cannot be a settlement reached, and this does go to an arbitrator? Sure, it's possible. That is drawn out in the CBA as a possible outcome, so it could happen. But history tells us that the NHL and the NHLPA generally likes to settle these things. So yes, I would have to guess that probably this gets settled in some form, and in a settlement, neither side gets everything they want. Johansen, in an ideal world for him, he gets all $8 million of his money, and he retires or then becomes a free agent at the end of next season and signs with somebody else because magically he's healthy again. Who the hell knows? Like, that would be his dream. The Flyers' dream would be the entire cap is wiped away and he's off their books and they don't have to pay him a damn thing. I guess neither is Nashville because the contract gets terminated and boom, it's over. I suspect that neither side is going to get everything of what they want. But I do think that both sides will get something. And for the Flyers, I have to consider the fact that they got the NHL on board with this to be a win, a big win for them. Because while it is no guarantee that they are going to win this outright, that Johansen's just going to accept this, he's not going to file a grievance, and the Flyers are just going to have $4 million of cap space just wiped away. I don't think that's going to happen. The Flyers don't really need $4 million worth of cap space to be wiped away for this to be worth their while. Right now, they are a little over $800,000 over the $88 million cap. They don't need $4 million wiped away to be under the cap. They really just need about $1 million. So even if the settlement turns a $4 million cap charge on their books to a $3 million cap charge, that is better than the alternative of just having a $4 million cap charge on their books. And precedent tells us the NHL tends to settle these things with the NHLPA, and even a settlement is probably going to get the Flyers what they want, which is a better situation than what they were dealing with 2 days ago, which was a full $4 million cap charge. It's likely going to get them enough of a relief to get them under the cap. Most likely, I think that's how this plays out. So for the Flyers, like, hey, if the NHL's on board with this, why not?
2 of the 3 possible outcomes put the Flyers in a better situation than the one they were in yesterday.
Right.
Where they were like, yeah, we're $830K over the cap and we don't want to use LTIR. What are our options?
Exactly.
And now it's like 2 of the 3 outcomes that could come from this, we're better off. And the third one is, well, fuck, we got to put someone on LTIR.
It's exactly the same position they were in on Sunday.
Exactly that position.
Yes.
This is one of the I have like in the outline here, like side quest. It's like the Mike Richards thing. This is one I just thought of because we said yesterday, Puckpedia tweeted out, there's never been a termination of a retained salary contract.
Right.
Do we know how this would affect Nashville?
We do not. I have no idea.
A buyout in this situation, it's like, yeah, regardless of that, like it affects both teams the same. Like if St. Louis was to have bought out Kevin Hayes instead of trading him, the Flyers would just be paying a Kevin Hayes 50% of his buyout rather than 50% of his salary for the retain. Like whatever they do, it affects you. I wonder if, and this is, we'll figure out over the next couple days or weeks or whatever, but like if he loses his grievance, like if he loses this situation, whatever, the arbitration, Ryan Johansen, I wonder if he has a separate grievance like, Nashville, this has nothing to fucking do with you. You owe me $4 million, but it is all one contract.
It is,
so I assume it would affect both teams.
He would not have the ability to do that because once a team trades away a player's rights, they basically lose all control over what happens to that contract after they make the trade. So Nashville, now the interesting question though is, if there's a settlement, how does it affect Nashville? And the reason why it's an interesting question is we don't have a precedent. We don't know. Now, basically, because the settlement is, this is not a settlement that will be negotiated between the Flyers and Johansen. This is a settlement that would be negotiated between the NHL and the NHLPA.
Yeah.
So the NHL, in theory, is negotiating, while they're primarily negotiating on behalf of the Flyers, they, in theory, are also kind of looking out for the Preds, too, because the Preds are under the NHL umbrella. The settlement could be anything. As I made the joke yesterday, it could even be a boat. But, like, I guess in theory, the settlement is whatever the NHL and the NHLPA agree to. If the NHL and the NHLPA agree to a settlement that completely cuts the Predators out, they could do that. The NHL and the NHLPA could, I guess, theoretically agree to a settlement where the Flyers basically do a buyout, but instead they have to cover the entire buyout and the Preds don't have to cover any of it. Like, people have asked me essentially, like, well, could this happen in a settlement? Could this happen in a settlement? And my answer has been, really anything can happen in a settlement. Once you get in a negotiation between the NHL and the NHLPA, you can pretty much negotiate anything. So the door's wide open for any possible negotiations. What I will say, though, is that generally speaking, these settlements tend to exist in reality. Yes. And what I mean by that is, so here's an example. The Evander Kane settlement. The Evander Kane settlement that the NHL and the NHLPA ultimately came to essentially was a make-whole settlement, because what happened was Evander Kane got his contract terminated, caught on with the Edmonton Oilers. He got his contract terminated with the Sharks, which was, I believe, about $19 million more of real money, something like that. That's what the Sharks were like trying to get out of. He caught on with the Oilers, impressed them, and then the Oilers signed him, I believe, to a contract worth about $16.5 million. While this settlement grievance process was going on. That was going on because Kane continued his career, found another team, that other team paid him more money. What the settlement ultimately ended up being was, okay, San Jose, you don't have to pay him the full $19 million that you terminated, but you got to make him whole. So you got to pay him $2.5 million so that functionally Kane is making the exact same money he would have made in total from the two teams, as opposed to if you didn't terminate the contract at all. So that's what I'm saying, where like these settlements tend to exist in what seems like something that both sides can agree is fair, which tells me that this is what if I had to guess, and again, this is not coming from any inside information, this is just based on the fact that these settlements tend to play out in a way that both sides can agree is like, yeah, that passes the smell test as in being fair. I could easily see this playing out where the NHL basically tells Johansen, okay, dude, the Flyers wanted to buy you out. That was how they wanted to resolve this in the first place. You didn't let them because you said you were hurt. We all know that was kind of bullshit. Now you are running the risk of getting zero money rather than getting the buyout that they probably would have done anyway. Why don't you just accept that functionally they're going to buy you out? You're going to get 2/3 of your $8 million. So you're going to get close to what you were contracted and what you would have gotten had you just allowed the buyout to happen anyway. The Flyers get their cap relief, but they still got to pay some money. Done. It would not shock me if after 100 days of back and forth negotiating, that's more or less what these two sides come to. And honestly, that strikes me as fair. Because, like, the Flyers would have just bought him out. He would have gotten 2/3 of the money. If that's the way it plays out, that strikes me as a fair resolution. And based on the way these things have been resolved in the past, that seems like a reasonable way for this to ultimately conclude after all the lawyers get their money and the NHL and the NHLPA goes in 5 different meetings and yells at each other in a boardroom for 3 months.
And I was wondering, like, because the cap hits is what is going to affect the Flyers, but we know in a lot of these longer term deals, like Johansen is on, the money can change and it sometimes goes down, but real cash is also $8 million.
Yeah,
like this is so it's not like he's fighting over 3.
No. His deal was you get $8 million every single year. Yes.
So,
which makes it very easy to talk about.
Yeah, it does. So like it's it's not even
It's a lot of money.
It's $8 million.
It's a lot of money.
And not as if $3 million isn't, but like it's not as if he's made so much of his contract and the only thing that really matters is the cap hit to the Flyers. No, he's still asking for $8 million of his $8 million that he's still owed.
Yeah,
so
and that's
that makes it make a lot more sense.
That's why when you get into a settlement, when you get into a negotiation, like Johansen may be confident that he's in the right here, but if it goes to arbitration, there is a risk that he gets nothing, which motivates him to come to the table and be willing to give up more than he wants to make sure he gets something. And $8 million is not an insignificant amount of money.
That's why innocent people sign plea deals.
Right.
It's like, I could lose.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah. So he's going to do that. I will say something that makes me very optimistic about the Flyers' position here. The NHL is going to go hard as hell because of the interests of one of their Gary Bettman's Sunbelt pet project teams is represented here.
Oh, Nashville.
If this was just the Flyers, I'd be like, oh, Johansen's winning this. I don't know. Nashville's involved. That's one of his pet projects.
Well, if it played out where they basically just said, okay, we're going to pretend that you bought Johansen out, the Flyers would have a $1.33 million cap hit for next year, for this upcoming season, and then a $1.33 million cap hit for the 2025-2026 season. What would hurt Nashville is Nashville would also have the same cap hit charge on their books due to the buyout. Is it possible that in the settlement, maybe the NHL says, all right, Nashville wasn't part of this. Maybe the Flyers, instead of having a $1.33 million cap hit charge every year, they have a $2.66 million cap hit charge? It's possible. And the Flyers, I believe, would still be, it wouldn't be ideal for them.
They'd still be in the black.
They would still be okay with that because they would still be below the $88 million. Like, maybe that's how it plays out because they say that the NHL decides this dispute had nothing to do with the Predators. They should not be punished for this. So the Flyers are taking on the full buyout of the $8 million. Maybe that's the way it plays out. But again, this is more just me theorizing based on the way these things have worked out in the past with the NHL and the NHLPA agreeing to a settlement that just makes sense based on what seems like fairness.
Still more to get to in this. What if Wednesday? What if we get to those? Well, probably not.
Probably not.
But first, I gotta, I love my boys at FOCO. That's right, our friends over at FOCO. Listen, man, it's here. Hockey season coming. I was just talking about fall allergies, but you know what else comes with fall? Hockey, football, basketball. It's the best time of the year. FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. And whether it's hoodies, jackets, maybe you're still looking for some beachwear, even overalls, there is something for fans for almost every occasion. And if you're in the market for some accessories, toys, or collectibles for that Man Cave She Shedder podcast set, you've got to use FOCO for all your team gear needs. It is the perfect time of year to be getting geared up. Like I said, whether it's NFL starting, NHL, NBA, or those baseball playoffs, Red October around the corner, you probably want some overalls, whatever it is. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of the show. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO today. That's PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO. Hey, man, you're getting all geared up for the season, tailgating season, all that stuff. What do you need? You need a badass cooler to break out at all these tailgating events, and that's why you need to check out Rugged Road. Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Our products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique things about it, it floats, man. Rugged Road coolers, their ability to always float upright is pretty dope, and you never lose a drink. The lightweight design, who wants to carry a heavy cooler? I told you about the durability and dependability yesterday, but these things are crafted to handle the toughest environments. Coolers are built to last, which who wants to be replacing a cooler all the time? But they also are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days, and oftentimes much longer than that. And they're perfect for a variety of outdoor activities, from fishing and tubing to camping and tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor or sports enthusiast. That was a tough one for me. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used, Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code PHLY for 10% off. ruggedroadoutdoors.com, code PHLY. All right. Where the hell were we now? Oh, I want to talk about the timeline.
Okay.
It's hard to know when exactly this is going to be resolved because they have the PA has 60 days to file the grievance, right, which starting today from the time that they're going to terminate the contract, we assume that's happening right now or already done. The paperwork's being filed, whatever it is. 60 days basically from today to file the grievance. And then from there, there's way more. There's other time.
But again, they have 60 days to file the grievance.
But they could do it now.
They can file the grievance the next day if they want to.
Yes. And then there's, once the grievance is filed, settlement time, and the arbitration is usually scheduled for a month after all that. Right. How does this work, Charlie?
Well, in theory, this could take a really, really long time if everyone takes the maximum amount of time to do everything they have to do to get this to an arbitrator. If this goes all the way to arbitration and everybody maxes out their time frames, this could be being dealt with next summer still. It's possible. That said, I did look at the Mike Richards situation and the Corey Perry situation. In both cases, and both of these were settled. Again, they didn't actually go to the arbitrator. In both cases, the situations were settled a little over 100 days after the contract termination. That would put this around early December in terms of this finally getting settled, if it follows the pattern of those two situations.
As of whenever the termination actually happens, as of that moment, the Flyers have $4 million off their cap.
Right. So they
are cap compliant.
Yeah.
They have cap space.
Yes. Functionally, I looked at this based on my assumption of what the most likely roster is going to be. They are functionally, after they ditch the $4 million of Johansen, they're functionally about $3.1 million below the cap ceiling, and that is even with Ryan Ellis fully on their books.
So if this plays out to early December, they are going to, have cap space, but be in cap limbo for the first 2-3 months of the season.
Right, because my understanding is the Flyers, while they will be cap compliant in theory, because the contract, according to the NHL at least, doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
The NHL will have accepted the contract termination. Boom, done. There is still the theoretical possibility that at the end of this, the Flyers will lose. And if the Flyers lose, then suddenly that $4 million gets popped back on their books, and then they probably have to do what they originally didn't want to do, which is tap in a long-term injured reserve. The thing is that the injured reserve part does give them some flexibility, which is why I don't think it's going to prevent them from calling players up while this is going on and whatnot. Because if worse came to worse, and in February they find out that, sorry, you lost the grievance and you have to pay the $4 million cap on your books all year, the Flyers just say, okay, well, in retrospect then on, October whatever, we put Ryan Johansen on long-term injured reserve and we use that to go over the cap. We use that allowance. They could do that. But because that only gives you a certain amount of allowance, it's not like the Flyers, because they have this $3.1 million worth of cap space. We talked about it. Kelly mentioned it on the show. Well, does this mean that now this is a prelude to them doing an offer sheet or doing something fun? No.
There's a lot of unsigned RFAs still, Charlie.
No, that is not what's going to happen, because the Flyers are still in something of cap limbo, because they don't know exactly how much cap space they will ultimately have after this finally gets resolved. I do not think they are then going to go out and, that $3.1 million, it's just burning a hole in my pocket. I got to go out and spend it immediately.
That's what I would do.
I know that's what you would do, Bill. That's why you're you.
That's why I need TrueMark Financial.
That's why you need TrueMark Financial. Exactly. But I think the Flyers are going to mostly hang tight. I think they will, I'm not saying they're going to do nothing. As I said, they're still going to be able to call up players. Maybe if they want to sign somebody to an entry-level contract or whatever, like they'll still be able to do that. They'll still have the flexibility. But don't think that this gives them the freedom to like, oh, they got all this money. Now they can go out and trade for somebody or they can do this big thing. Big moves, first off, don't usually happen at this point of the year anyway. I know fans wish they did. I know you wish they did. They don't.
I mean, St. Louis just made a couple pretty big moves.
Just saying. They don't usually happen in mid to late August.
Typically
they
not.
don't usually happen in September or October or November when this is probably going to be playing out. So the Flyers probably have the ability to just kind of hang tight for a bit and not make any big trades or any big signings and wait to see how this plays out, wait to see how much cap space they ultimately end up with, or if they ultimately end up losing this grievance and end up having to go in LTIR. They're probably going to be in limbo for a little bit, which, well, it won't prevent them from doing anything. It will maybe prevent them from doing anything big for the next few months.
Now, the looming disaster, maybe, the overarching thing here that has been a theme in a lot of the Flyers controversies over the last year, 16 months.
Okay.
Kurt, not Kevin, Kurt Overhardt.
Kurt Overhardt.
This is a little concerning. Like I said yesterday, yeah, the Eagles still do business with Drew Rosenhaus. The Phillies still do business with Scott Boras.
Is Drew Rosenhaus still an agent?
I think his kid is.
Okay, I was wondering because you don't ever hear about him anymore. We still hear about Scott Boras all the time.
Yeah.
I never hear about Drew Rosenhaus. I kind of was thinking about that.
At least
whatever happened to that guy?
In the aftermath of
They still worked with
they
him.
still did business. I don't know if they still. I think there's like a Rosenhaus agency, but I don't know
if he's directly doing the agenting.
The guy,
agenting.
I feel like I heard his son. Anyway,
Maybe.
the Eagles,
That's just something that pops in my head after the show. Like, whatever happened to Drew Rosenhaus?
yeah, he just decided like I'm old now. I don't need to be an asshole
He's
on
probably
TV
super
all
rich.
the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a billionaire.
Exactly.
Like
Fair. If only all rich people just got rich and then went away. That would be fantastic.
Dope. He has a lot of clients. KO Sports has a lot of clients. Joel Farabee is one of his clients. This isn't. It'll get.
It's to be clear.
resolved.
He's not. Joel Farabee is not
He's a
one.
KO,
He's
not
not one
an
of Kurt Overhardt's
Okay.
clients. His agent's name is Sean Hunwick.
Okay.
But Sean Hunwick
Works for KO
works
Sports.
in KO Sports.
Okay.
Yes, he basically Kurt is his boss.
Yes. You're going to have to deal with KO Sports and probably Kurt Overhardt.
Right.
Oh, it's his initials.
You get it now?
Yeah. I just thought it was like, I don't know, just KO is a sports term.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's like a dual thing.
yeah.
It's his initials and it has sports
I get it.
overtones.
I
There you
get
go.
it. Anyway, you're going to have to be dealing with this agency and this agent.
Probably, yeah.
You put in your article, KO.
Or if you choose not to, you are putting yourself at a deliberate disadvantage of the other 31 teams in the NHL who are working with them and whoever they represent.
Like we often say about like the thing isn't that the best candidate might not be a former Flyer. It's that like you've intentionally shrunk your pool.
Right.
Maybe the best possible GM is Danny Briere, but your pool only includes Danny Briere and a bunch of dudes who were his teammates. You know,
That was always our big concern
like-
about their hiring process.
yeah, like it might not be. Yeah, he's a better candidate than Mike Richards because, like, you know, he got bought out for drug possession.
Yeah.
you know, like maybe
Maybe Mike Richards would make a great GM. Who knows?
Maybe he would.
Could be.
In your article, you put KO Sports is the 7th largest agency by NHL cap hits at the moment.
Yeah.
They got a whole lot of freaking clients.
It's not an insignificant. It's not the biggest. It's
Yeah.
not like they burn a bridge with Paprasson, but it's not
No,
insignificant.
that'll be when they try to do this to Sean Couturier next year. It'll be
Fair.
great. No, like this is. We can debate how much. It's a concern, though.
Yeah, well, and the concern popped up. It manifested itself for the first time, and again, this is all just rumors. But I can tell you that this is a hockey world rumor. It's basically hockey gossip. Is that part the reason why the Flyers did not take Zeev Buium is because Kurt Overhardt is his agent. That if Zeev Buium was represented by Paprasson, it is more likely that the Flyers would not have Jet Lushenko on their team right now. They were in their organization. They would have Zeev Buium. I do not know if that is true. I can say that there are people that
Happy birthday, Jet
there are
Lushenko.
people that I believe have good sources who think that there is truth to it. And I don't know if that's true, but I know that it is being talked about in hockey circles that played into it. And given the fact that Zeev Buium, generally speaking, and I'm not saying every team believed this. Maybe the Flyers were one of the teams that didn't believe this. Generally speaking, the industry consensus was that Zeev Buium was a better prospect than Jet Lushenko. In the public sphere and also the private sphere in terms of teams, that was the general consensus. If an aversion to dealing with Kurt Overhardt led the Flyers to purposely take a worse prospect at number 12. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that is industry gossip that it played into it. That is not good for a rebuilding team.
No,
it's not. Because it gives you a less chance of getting the kind of star level talent that you need.
It does. And it's somewhat of a concern. Obviously, each case, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. The next move they make, the next big move they make might be to acquire one of this guy's clients, and then we're like, oh, everything's cool.
I guess everything's okay.
Maybe their big first free agent signing when they finally get back into free agency is one of his guys, and then we go, oh, all right, we're good. Maybe not, though. It's something to keep an eye on.
If I had to guess, do I think Kurt Overhardt at the moment is very ticked off at the Flyers? Yeah, I sure fucking do.
I bet.
I'm sure he's livid at them right now. I do not doubt that whatsoever. I also think that Kurt Overhardt most likely is not going to purposely screw himself out of money by blacklisting the Flyers from his clients. I do not think Overhardt would do that. And I definitely do not think Overhardt would screw over his underlings and tell Sean Hunwick, when Joel Farabee's contract's up, do not let him re-sign with the Flyers, because these guys want to make money. And I do not think that Overhardt would purposely screw over his underlings or himself and make it harder for him and his people to make money. So I'm not so much concerned about that. I am a bit concerned that the Flyers may decide we never want to deal with this guy again because we can't trust him. And I guess I would see where they were coming from, but also you're making your team building job harder by blacklisting a non-insignificant part of the league. I
am far more concerned about the Flyers' potential for spite than KO Sports and Kurt Overhardt.
Right.
That is... I think that is the bigger concern. So we're just not going to take these guys. Yeah.
We're just going to avoid them at all costs, if at all possible.
That's a bad idea.
And that would be a bad idea. And I hope the Flyers don't go down that path. I hope that the reason why they took Jet Lushenko over Zeev Buium is because they think Zeev Buium is going to be a bust, and they think Jet Lushenko is going to be a 1C. I really, really hope that was the reason. But if part of it was not wanting to deal with Kurt Overhardt, and it turns out Zeev Buium is an all-star defenseman and Jet Lushenko is a decent middle six center, and part of that reason why they passed on the all-star defenseman is because they don't like Kurt Overhardt, that sucks.
I have a couple more things I want to get to before we wrap up, but first, I just want to thank all of our diehards out there. We could not do what we do without you. And if you want to become a diehard because you're dying to read Charlie's latest article about the Ryan Johansen situation, it's real good.
And also, you would also get access to the Kolosov article I wrote about that situation the previous day, because this has been a crazy week in Flyers world.
AllPHLY.com. Sign up to be a diehard. All sorts of benefits. But the number one is you get this dude's premium content. While I'm selling you stuff, this is free, actually. I'm not selling you anything. I wanted to just walk you through. So yesterday we announced, this is pretty big. It's pretty cool, man. PHLY, all of our content is going to be available live and we replay the stuff on our own channel on Roku, on the Roku channel app. All you have to do, I recorded this morning just to show you how easy it is to find us. I have a Roku TV. It works with all your Roku devices. Do we have the audio for this? Me walking it through? All right, so it's so easy to find us. Just watch this quick video. All right, guys, finding us on Roku, super simple. I have a Roku TV, any Roku device. You just find the Roku channel app. There it is right there. Bang, open it up. Go over to the left, search. I already typed in PHLY earlier to see if this would work. It did. Type it in. Boom, it'll come up, PHLY. Open it up, and you will find whatever we have going live. As you can see right now, look at that. Baldy and Cuz, pretty good stuff. Thanks, fam. So make sure you check us out on our newest platform over at Roku.
I got to say, one thing that's really cool about this is that, and I bet there are people in this company that have been able to say this before. I have never been able to say this. I can now say I'm on TV.
Look at that, Charlie.
It's really cool. It's
Charlie's
a cool
on
feeling.
TV.
I'm on TV.
Pretty good shit. So check us out over at Roku. We don't have time for the Mike Richards side quest. I'll just say that he's on the LA King books until 2031. That's insane.
Yeah. They're paying him in real money and cap dollars through 2031.
Unbelievable.
It's their version of the Ilya Bryzgalov contract.
Yeah, it really is. I want to talk about the Torts thing real quick. Did we have anything more on this on Johansen?
I think we really broke this down as in depth as we possibly could. And the funny thing is that despite the fact that we talked about this for an hour, I still don't think we even scratched the surface of all the things I put in that article.
No, absolutely not. I took like a couple of things out of it, like just, okay, this is what I find interesting. Here's a couple of ideas just for the show, have a conversation, but so much more. Allphly.com. Be a diehard. John Tortorella has been named the one of the assistant coaches for the 2025 Four Nations face-off that the NHL is going to be doing. Mike Sullivan, I think this is the most interesting part.
I think this is the cool part, yeah.
Mike Sullivan is the head coach of Team USA, the Penguins head coach. He has served under Tortorella for 3 different teams as his assistant, and now Torts is going to be Sullivan's assistant. I find that very fun.
It's going to be interesting. I'm actually excited to talk to Tortorella about it. Because, I mean, him and Sullivan are still buds. They worked together for a long time, and he speaks very highly of Mike Sullivan. Like the two, when the Flyers play the Penguins, Sullivan and Torts are always chatting it up, catching up. They're buddies. They're still buddies. It will be very interesting to hear Tortorella's thoughts on having to work under the guy who worked under him for so long.
And now I just on the Team USA, the USA Hockey website, they have like a roster section, but there's only 6 guys that have I guess you're on the fucking team.
They announced it at draft weekend.
Oh, is that what it was?
That was the thing. Like the main teams announced their I think it was the beginning of the second day of the draft. The main teams, the 4 teams, because there's only 4 nations, announced their stars. Because I remember the night before the draft, I was out with some people from Elite Prospects. We were just hanging out drinking, and we were trying to over beers. We were trying to figure out. We're trying to guess who the announced players for each country were going to be. This is the kind of stuff that happens in the draft.
For Team USA, it's Eichel, Matt Tkachuk, Adam Fox, Austin Matthews, Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy. Those are the 6 guys who've been announced so far. I doubt there'll be any Flyers on Team USA. Who's the funniest guy that could make it for Torts? Is it Cutter? Cutter's not going to make it. He's a rookie.
I mean, unless he has a monster rookie year.
If that's the case, then it's not funny. It's devastating.
Yeah, that would be awful for the Flyers. Well, not awful, but it'd be awful for Flyers fans. Let me put it that way. Who would be the funniest guy to make Team USA?
It's hard to think of. I'm horrible with where people are from, nationalities.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would be a Flyer because a current Flyer would have to be somebody he coached in the past. Yeah, who maybe he clashed with, because I don't think there's anybody I guess it would be really funny if Kevin Hayes made it, but there's no way he's going to.
Yeah, that would be
he just got given away to the Penguins.
Winning.
Yeah. that would be
USA ain't winning if
that would be very interesting if he had to coach Kevin Hayes again.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is going to happen because Kevin Hayes is not good enough anymore, at least in terms of his last couple of years, to make a national team. Would it be funny if Joel Farabee showed up? Sure. But again, if Joel Farabee makes that team, that means he's having an awesome year. And in that case, I would assume Tortorella now loves him.
Yeah, yeah. But in all likelihood, at the tournament as a whole, might Torts be our only representative, the Flyers' only representative?
Well, so what are the 4 countries? It's the U.S., Canada,
Finland, Sweden.
Finland and Sweden. No, probably fucking Risto will go if he's healthy.
Oh, yeah. And God knows if he's healthy.
I mean, we'll see. But if he's healthy, I assume he'll represent Finland.
True. Okay, that makes sense. And maybe Ersson, I guess.
Maybe Ersson, he has a good year.
He has an outside chance.
Yeah, he has an outside chance.
Yeah, but USA and Canada... No way, right?
Maybe if Konechny has a monster first half. Because I don't think he's on the roster now. I do think he's in the mix. Like, he's somebody who, when they're having discussions, his name is at least, it's on the dry erase board as a guy who, like, well, we'll keep an eye on him. He's good. He's probably not good enough to be on this team, but he's a good player. And if he is on a super hot streak and is on pace for 50 goals, maybe he makes a team. Konechny, I think, is at least in the conversation, though I don't expect him to make the team.
What's your interest level in this thing?
It's hockey. I'll watch it.
That's how we all felt about the Adidas thing that they did, the World Cup a few years ago. And it was like, Jesus, what was that, 2016 now? It was a while ago. And then it ended up being real good.
The big thing, though, with that, I feel like, was Team North America.
Yes.
That's what got the people.
North America
That's what got
great.
the people who were on the fence about it. Like, yo, this rules, because you got these kids flying around, just doing cool stuff and being super excited. If it wasn't for them, I don't know if that tournament would have succeeded to the degree it did.
And that overtime game that they won was like one of the best hockey games I've ever watched. That was so good.
Yeah, it was fun.
And the Team North America jerseys were very cool.
Yeah, they ripped.
I feel like going into this, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, one, I just think it's asinine Russia isn't involved. I know. Yeah. I know. I get it. But, like, it's the, third at worst biggest hockey nation? Like, Alex Ovechkin's not going to be in this thing? That's what you're telling me?
Look, I just find it crazy. Saying this without political things. But what I will say is that there is at least a case to be made that Russian hockey players should not be punished because their country and their crazy dictator is doing crappy things.
I don't think hockey fans should be punished
there's
because
a case
some asshole's being an asshole. Yeah. Like, I don't know. What does hockey have to do with this?
I understand why it's done. It's because it's trying to put pressure. It's for a bad thing to stop happening, and I get that. But I do think there is a case to be made.
Imagine Vladimir Putin going, well, fuck, we're not in the Four Nations. Pull out of Ukraine now.
That's a fair
point. We
point.
got to win this Four Nations face-off that only exists to sell jerseys.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. The Olympics, all right, at least that's prestigious.
True.
Like, at least the Olympics are a real thing that didn't just get invented last summer.
That's a fair point.
Like, this is, if that's what the thought process behind this, and let us not forget, the greatest moment in, like, international hockey history happened while Russia was invading Afghanistan, and that was real bad, and that made them. What makes sports great? Good guys versus bad guys. You have fucking bad guys. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Five nations face off.
I agree that there is a case to be made.
I know, and I get that. Like, we're making a joke of this, and it's a much bigger deal.
It is a big deal,
but like, I don't know.
But also,
it's a hockey game.
We talked about this idea of like the smell test about the like, come on. The point you made of. Yeah, it's not like not going to a Four Nations tournament is going to stop Vladimir Putin from continuing to make war on Ukraine. Like, come on.
The tournament whose semifinal is on President's Day that we just decided, like, it just got made up yesterday.
The argument is essentially that, like, they should be isolated in every way as long as they're doing a really bad thing, and I get that. But I do think that you can make a coherent argument that isn't unsympathetic to the situation overseas, that is like, does this really matter that much to hockey?
Yeah, like, I don't know. It would be cool if Matvei Michkov got to play some international hockey. That's all. All right, let's get to the Super Chats. We're not going to get to What If Wednesday today. We'll do them next week. We got a couple of Super Chats here. First one from Mellerman4. Send K-Red some birthday wishes and keep up the good work as always. K-Red.
I guess K-Red, one of our regular commenters and viewers. It's his birthday. Happy birthday,
One
K-Red.
of our most dedicated viewers here in the YouTube chat and all throughout our content. K-Red, happy birthday from Charlie and I and everyone here at PHLY. And now Gary B. I live, eat, sleep, breathe this franchise. I'm frankly worried when they have quiet weeks. Well, luckily,
they don't come very often.
Like, again, this is a team that, like, essentially, and I know, like, I don't want to say did nothing because Charlie takes exception to that. But they
getting Matvei Michkov over here 2 years early is very much not nothing.
It's very much something. Also, like, he was in the organization. And I realized, like we just talked about with all the Russia stuff going on, and we saw with Fedotov and just what we thought the timeline was initially, it's big. Matvei Michkov was in the organization. They didn't add anyone to the organization. Okay. They, signed the biggest contract in franchise history with Travis Konechny, but, like, all right.
He was here.
He was already here. And
a lot of people didn't want that.
A lot of people thought that might not be the best idea. For a franchise that essentially did nothing, they've had a ridiculous offseason. Some of it good, some of it bad. Yeah. But honestly, thanks, Flyers.
That's the Flyers experience.
You've really helped us.
Some of it good, some of it bad.
A lot of it kind of a kick in the dick. Yeah. But
some of it good, some of it bad, most of it weird.
Yeah, it's like
it's always strange.
In the middle of the show yesterday, we're like, I wonder if this has ever happened. And then we get a tweet from Puckpedia. No, there's no precedent for this. Of course there's not. Of course there's not. All right, that's it for us today. Another long-ass show in the middle of, the off-season when nothing's going on.
Yep.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, follow us right here on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the reminder bell so you never miss a live show. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, as we have been all summer at 1 o'clock. Follow us on Twitter at @PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast. Yeah, the podcast. Wherever you get those, just search PHLY Flyers and check us out on Roku. Make us look good. If it's like, yo, every time PHLY Flyers is on, the Roku channel numbers go up. I got to believe that's good for me and Charlie. So if you want to support me and Charlie, do it that way, amongst the many other ways we give you every
we
show.
Track all of our views and listens, and now we'll be tracking the Roku thing. So
can't be bad.
Any way that you view the show helps us in terms of what we can little bit of like what we can charge advertisers for
have
ads.
Multiple screens, create multiple accounts, scam the system.
I don't know if you can say that.
Everyone knows I'm joking. LOL. All right, my name is Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, you stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.